A very frustrated Kevin McCarthy acting like he's some kind of alpha male walking up to Matt Gaetz and Lauren Boebert as if this is going to intimidate them. Matt Gaetz is like, man, look, I know you're a soy boy, all right? I know you're a part of the swamp. Kevin McCarthy's like, I know you know that I have no interest in helping the American people. I have every interest in helping Ukraine and filling my pockets up. You got that, Gaetz? Matt Gaetz is like, thanks for clearing that up, you Manchurian candidate. Now get the out of here. And, of course, out of the blue, it's Mike Rogers. He's looking a little pissed, looking to back up McCarthy. Oh, my God, it appears they're going to drag him out by his face. And Kevin McCarthy has no idea. Now he's going back. What's going on here, man? Mike Rogers comes in like he's Tony Soprano, but that's a tough thing to do when you're wearing a toupee like that. My God, it looks like Chris Farley's playing a character in SNL. Pulls a Will Smith, and he's like, you keep my boyfriend McCarthy's name out your mouth. And McCarthy's like, what the hell is going on? And for the first time ever, Mike Rogers becomes the first politician to be featured on the Ludicrous Cam.
Now that's what you call a negotiation. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Zurkanowski here of WeAreChange.org, and there is a plethora of absolutely crazy news to get into as the new boss sure looks like the old boss. As in today's video, we're not only going to be talking about all the latest news, but specifically the latest shift in power in Washington, D.C., which is definitely not going to benefit you. We're going to get into that plus a lot more. If you like the shirt that I'm wearing, you can get it on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And the clip that we played in the beginning of this broadcast was done by the extremely talented Steve Inman. And we're definitely going to be plugging the link to his channel down in the description below, as of course his MMA commentary of what just happened in the House of Representatives was absolutely genius. I just followed him. I just found his work. And it looks like he does a lot of incredible work, so we definitely wanted to shout them out, mainly because we definitely need more art. We need more entertainment. We need to laugh more, because if we're not laughing, we're absolutely crying, especially when it comes to all the news coming from our government that couldn't be more disappointing than ever, as we, of course, have now officially, since our last video, a new Speaker of the House. I personally was vying for more honest and transparent representative of Congress, a pioneer, a pull stringer, a bug eater, and that of course was Klaus Schwab, and sadly I did not get my way. We got of course Kevin McCarthy after a lot of negotiations, a lot of voting, and of course a lot of Frank Underwood-like behavior that of course finally led to the Republicans getting in line and voting for Kevin McCarthy, which of course House Republicans decided to celebrate by of course bringing in the champagne and announcing that their first bill in Congress will be to repeal the funding for the 87,000 new IRS agents that are going to be introduced through the Inflation Reduction Act, a bill heavily influenced by Bill Gates that was passed by the House and the Senate before. Now, of course, that sounds all hunky-dory. That sounds great to the average American that's sick of the government literally taking their hard-earned money from them as they print money out of thin air. But we have to remember that the Republicans only have the House. They're very disorganized. They can't agree on many issues. And even if this bill does pass the House, it's going to go to the Senate. And then if miraculously it passes the Senate, then it's going to go to the President of the United States, who again is just following orders here and passing the bills that Bill Gates wants him to pass. And personally, what I think this new Congress will achieve is, of course, keeping up the status quo and the larger money and protection rackets for special interests. And whether it's Big Pharma or, of course, the military-industrial complex, we can't deny the fact that if the government is good at one thing, it's definitely ensuring that these people get their money on time. And whether it's them trying to sell you a rushed product that, of course, they protect the company from having any liability from, or giving your cash to Lockheed Martin, it's pretty much guaranteed that they're going to be getting a ton of money, as, of course, over the weekend, the temporary ceasefire in Ukraine was officially denied. This officially declared by the advisor for, of course, President Volodymyr Zelensky. This, as other news articles claimed, that it was Russia that violated negotiated this ceasefire, and in a time of war, the truth is always the first casualty. This is also recently, we got a very interesting perspective into war and the people who, of course, conduct wars, including, of course, very prominent political figures like Prince Harry, that allegedly in his new autobiography bragged how he killed 25 people with his Apache helicopter, going on and even allegedly describing how he is not embarrassed of these killings because, quote, he doesn't see the victims as people but as chess pieces. This giving us a perfect insight into the daily thoughts, minds, and actions of many of our politicians, including the most sociopathic of ones like John Bolton, a neoconservative war hawk that is never satisfied unless the military-industrial complex gets a bigger and bigger check, who over the weekend just announced that he is considering running to be president of the United States, since, of course, sociopaths usually try to get as much power and authority as they can for themselves. All of this as John Bolton says that the former president of the United States is in a, quote, terminal decline, and he sees himself filling the void by becoming the president of the United States and probably launching World War III, World War IV, and whatever war he could launch. As, of course, even the New York Post got the wrong serial killer on this news website. But hey, they're not really that far off when you start to really examine what politicians really do. And if the propaganda couldn't be more overt, the Washington, D.C. football team, the Commanders, has just officially launched their new mascot, which is a war pig. How else do you describe this? This is a war pig. Since, the previous name, paying respects to a fierce Native American tribe, was too disrespectful for everyone, so the Washington, D.C. football team is now celebrated and cheered on by a dancing pig. And while all of this is happening and the American people keep getting screwed over, what's the corporate media doing that's supposed to be watching all of this? Well, in related cringe-worthy dance moves, we of course have Jimmy Fallon doing his latest song and dance routine telling you to obey authority, buy a private product, and be a good little slave for the establishment, just like he is. All of this as the fourth branch of government that is supposed to keep the other three branches in check is, of course, acting like the personal PR agency of the special interest class that, of course, keeps doing the screwing to the American people, as even the LA Times recently just wrote an article about how charitable Mr. Bill Gates is, making the biggest charitable donation from all of last year, donating $5 billion, but cutting the lead short by failing to announce that he gave $5 billion to himself and his private foundation, which most likely makes sure that he doesn't have to pay any taxes like the other peasants and slaves that, of course, he relies on for his money. Interesting how that works, but also don't forget, you gotta trust the science no matter what it is. Do your sing and dance routine, and don't forget to smoke on your asbestos cigarettes, since, the federal authorities always know what is right for you and complying, and not questioning what we are currently going through, thinking that our system is still the best one there is something that I believe is worth questioning. And when the corporate media doesn't do their job, well, you have to. And one way to do that is not only to share these videos, but more importantly also get active and engaged in the conversation by just simply wearing a shirt. And whether it's, one, informing people about the dangers of seed oil, or reminding people that this unaccountable eugenics money launderer is not a medical doctor, whatever your issue may be, we of course will have you perfectly represented on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Our channel, of course, has been previously demonetized, so we had no other way of surviving other than, of course, making a t-shirt company. This is our own company. We have lots of different shirts, lots of different designs to start conversations, and more importantly, get active and engaged when it comes to having conversations with your friends, with your family members, random strangers walking down the street, in the supermarket, with the bank teller, the grocery bagger, whoever it may be. The issues at hand matter, and they simply start with not just a conversation, but just with a t-shirt expressing a political thought that will have people thinking, that will have people either loving you or giving you a side eye. Whatever it is, your life's going to be definitely a lot more entertaining by getting a shirt on thebestpoliticalshirts.com. And because you do, this is one reason why, of course, we are still existing and allowed to thrive and grow as an independent media organization. Lots of shirts, lots of laughs, lots of goofs, all available on thebestpoliticalshirts.com, including the one that I'm wearing right now, which I think perfectly represents, the larger ideologies of what some people have going through their head. Now, of course, we're not done here, as there's still so much things to talk about. I still have a plethora of things I want to discuss, including the alleged immigration reform that this Biden administration is going to be enforcing, with, of course, a visit to El Paso, Texas, an American city that has been most hit and devastated by, of course, the open border policies in the United States that, of course, predominantly, as Bernie Sanders, help out a larger Koch brother plan of creating cheap labor while, of course, increasing the cost of housing. Those weren't my words. Those were the words of Bernie Sanders before he sold out. This as today we're finding out that the streets of El Paso, Texas are being cleared of all the immigrants that have been forced to live on the streets because of these reckless, irresponsible policies, and that the reality of the situation will be being kept away from the general public, from the President of the United States, and of course the media that essentially is not reporting on this larger admitted democratic population change, as of course they see this policy as a way to ensure their foothold in Washington, D.C., with, of course, continued support of their political base. Now, what's happening in Mexico, what's happening all over the world, what's happening in El Paso, all of this is being kept away from the general public, as openly this White House has been continuing this disastrous policy, which at the end of the day has been leading to a lot of tremendous human suffering. And whether it's with traffickers, coyotes, people being forced to live in uncivilized, unsanitary holding cells, we have to understand that this policy is purely there for political power, no matter what human suffering leads to it, which leads me to the perfect representation of what actually government is. And this is why I think, maybe re-examining how we do things, maybe kind of considering personal responsibility, maybe kind of having a conversation about where we go forward without relying on supporting sociopaths in order to do so. Maybe it's time for that conversation. If you agree, share this video with your friends and family members. Sincerely, thank you again for purchasing our shirts. We're continuing our AMA tomorrow on LukeUncensored.com, where I will be talking to you guys directly. And more importantly, love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.